Welcome to the European Space Agency ESA. This is the Robotic Learning Centre, and we're here today to answer some questions about human physiology, the functioning of the human body. Ever wondered why you feel dizzy after a funfair ride? Or why you can't walk straight after you spin around really fast? Well, all of this has to do with physiology and gravity. The main difference between Earth and space is that astronauts live and work in a weightless environment. Gravity has many effects on the human body. A good way of understanding these is to study the human body in the weightless environment of space. I've asked friends from Brøndshøj in Denmark, Leuven in Belgium, Amsterdam in the Netherlands, and Paris in France to lend a hand. And we'll be going on board the International Space Station, the ISS, to get help from ESA astronaut André Kuipers from the Netherlands and Gennady Padalka from Russia. Yes, we can see the ESA logo. A blindfold and earplugs. Wonder what they're for. Hey Gennady, take care. If you let him go, who knows where he'll spin off to. Are you trying to point out the logo again? You're way off. Better luck next time. In space, it's easy for astronauts to lose their sense of direction. Very often they get dizzy and can get disoriented. Why do you think that happens? The human brain receives information about the body's position from three sources: the eyes, the sensors in muscles and tendons, and a set of sensors found in the inner ear, which we call the vestibular system. We use our eyes all the time to get visual cues. These cues allow us to check our position, to see if we're standing, lying down, or are at a slant. The sensors in our muscles and tendons send information to the brain telling us if we're the right way up. On Earth, this system works fine without our eyes. If you close your eyes, you can still tell the relative position of your body. Where is up and where is down? Within the inner ear is the vestibular system. This consists of the otoliths and the semicircular canals. The otoliths sense when we move our heads forward or to the side. They're sensitive to gravity, and so can also tell us when we are the right way up. The semicircular canals are filled with liquid and detect the head's angular motion, or rotation. They work a little like a complex set of spirit levels. Together, these three sensors help give us a sense of balance and direction. On Earth, our vestibular system and our muscles and tendons have adapted to gravity. In space, however, the brain initially behaves as if it is still on Earth. It keeps trying to match up the information it's getting with reference points which are no longer there. With these two orientation systems out of order, it's not surprising that the brain has a hard time trying to figure out which way is up and which is down. Due to this, many astronauts experience space adaptation syndrome, or space sickness, which is very like travel sickness here on Earth. But after a while, the brain gets accustomed to the new conditions. You saw André trying to find the logo. With his eyes blindfolded, the only sensors he could rely on were his muscles and tendons and his vestibular system. And as you can see, these do not help him in space. Hey, that looks like fun. Well, they certainly look disoriented. Like André, our friends have disturbed their vestibular system by spinning around. And so they don't have enough of a sense of direction or balance to score. Hey, those scores are pretty good. We've got another spinner. Oh, I get it. not so good. So, even people who are normally well coordinated can be disoriented if their systems are off course. Nice drawing though. That seems pretty straightforward. Okay, not bad considering she couldn't see where she was aiming. As we've seen, it takes a combination of 3 different sensor systems to orient ourselves properly. On Earth, it can be awkward if any of these systems are set off course, but usually we can rely on the others. Nice shot. Astronauts have lots of important jobs to do when they are in space, so it's pretty important that they don't get too disoriented. It's one thing for our friends in Denmark to miss a few baskets, but no one can afford to make any mistakes when in space. Let's have a look at some other effects of gravity on our bodies. Hey Andre, what are you doing there? If you're trying to start a new dance, I don't think it'll catch on. Andre is comparing his arms, but can you see much of a difference? Well, this may not look like much, but we've just seen another effect of weightlessness on the body. Blood flows through our bodies in a network of blood vessels called arteries and veins. Our heart pumps the blood through these blood vessels, and the way they work together is known as the cardiovascular system. The pressure of the blood against the walls of the blood vessels as it is pumped is known as blood pressure. Like anything else on Earth, the blood in our blood vessels is subject to the effects of gravity, which causes extra pressure, known as hydrostatic pressure. So, when we are standing, blood naturally drops into the legs and lower body. As a result, blood pressure is higher in the legs than in the arms. On Earth, if we change our normal posture, we change the direction of hydrostatic pressure. As we can see, they're holding one hand up and one hand down. Now, because of the pull of gravity, the lowered arm has more blood flowing through it than the raised arm. But in space, gravity is not working on the blood to pull it downward or upward. In fact, there is no up or down. So no matter how long Andre holds his arm up, there will be no inflation or deflation of his veins. With no hydrostatic pressure, his 2 arms look exactly the same. I think our friends have more to show us. This time they're reversing the normal posture. So which arm will be affected? If you look at the arms in relation to gravity, you see that one arm is up, but the blood is pulled by gravity to flow downward. Having a rest. This position is actually a good model for weightlessness, as hydrostatic pressure evens out along the body. Scientists study people who stay in this position for 2 to 3 months at a time. Let's guess which hand will be affected this time. Well, they are both the same, as neither arm was higher or lower with respect to gravity. So the results are more like Andre's on board the ISS. As you can imagine, it's very important for astronauts to keep an eye on their cardiovascular system. If something happens to their health, the nearest hospital is a very long way off. Here Andre's blood pressure and heart rate are being measured over a 24-hour period, as well as giving us information about how our bodies function in weightlessness. The data from this experiment can help us understand cardiovascular problems which affect people on Earth. By looking at these experiments, we've seen how gravity and hydrostatic pressure affect our blood flow. But now, let's get back to blood vessels and see how they work. This is a classroom in Andre's old school in the Netherlands. Here they're measuring his calf before takeoff. As you can see, they're taking the measurement at the widest part of his left calf. This was filmed just after takeoff. we can see there's a little difference. Nice bow tie. Here Andrei's being filmed on the ISS. His legs are definitely thinner. We've already seen how hydrostatic pressure naturally tends to pull the blood in our bodies downward when we're on Earth. To counteract the pull of gravity, our cardiovascular system has control mechanisms. Receptors which monitor blood pressure moment to moment and help ensure that blood is evenly distributed throughout our bodies. Using this feedback, the nervous system continuously sends messages to the blood vessels, telling them to keep the pressure at the right level. And so all tissues in the body get supplied with the right amount of blood. But what happens in space? Now, the last thing you'd imagine an ESA astronaut would need is new clothes on the ISS. But in fact, astronauts find that their bodies change visibly in space. Some people call this the chicken leg or puffy face syndrome. Why does this happen? There are two reasons. Firstly, without hydrostatic pressure, blood no longer naturally falls to the feet. This means there is less demand on the cardiovascular system to correct itself. Over time, this weakens the heart muscle. Like any muscle, the less we use it, the weaker it gets. The elements of the nervous system which regulate circulation also get weaker. Without gravity, they aren't being used as much, and they forget what to do. Secondly, it's not only blood that's affected, but all fluids in our body. Free from the pull of gravity, these fluids even out along the body. But the head isn't used to dealing with so much fluid floating up, and our legs are normally used to more fluid being pulled down. The overall result is that the veins in Andrei's neck and face stand out more than usual, and his skin fills with fluid. Meanwhile, as we saw, his legs get thinner as less blood and fluid are being pulled into them. Guess you'll need a new suit after all, Andrei. Now let's see what our friends have for us. A ribbon, not another bow tie. What are they up to? Gravity and blood pressure are causing a rush of blood to the head. So don't hang around for too long. Oh, they're measuring their necks. You can see there is a difference. Well, that's not a huge difference. Another calf measurement. Nice move. Hope you're having fun. It's a small difference, but imagine that magnified over months, and he might have chicken legs too. In space, weightlessness causes fluid in our body to shift, causing thicker necks, thinner legs, headaches, and swollen faces. No wonder Andrei and his colleagues need to be so fit. Hi, Andrei. You measuring again. What height are you? Don't tell me you're still growing. And now, at the end of the mission, you're even taller. Ever try to prove that you were taller than somebody else? Well, space might give you an advantage. Our spine is made up of a number of small bones called vertebrae. In between each vertebrae, we have soft cushions called intervertebrae discs. These absorb the impact the vertebrae have on each other as we move around. Just like our blood, our bones and our discs are affected by gravity. This results in the discs being compressed or pushed together when we are standing. In space, with no weight pulling them downwards, the discs expand. This results in an overall lengthening of the spine. As you have seen, Andrei has been measuring his height before and since takeoff. And he's been recording these measurements in a logbook. And we saw that he has got taller since going to space. These students are measuring their height first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. There are tiny changes in height, That's because at night, when we are lying down, our spines have the chance to relax. During the day, gravity pulls on our spine, so we're slightly shorter than when we get up. The girls are stretching, so gravity isn't compressing their intervertebrae discs the way it normally would. This exercise won't make a big difference, but imagine doing it continuously for a week. This is because their muscles are adapting too, as they're part of the body's overall musculoskeletal system. Musculoskeletal means that the muscles are attached to the body's skeleton and so work together as a system when we move our bodies. Like our cardiovascular system, our musculoskeletal system evolved under gravity and is used to keep our bodies functioning in an Earth gravity environment. Many of our muscles are specifically designed to keep the skeleton upright. Others are designed to keep us moving in relation to gravity, for example, by running, lifting, or stretching. In the weightless conditions of space, the muscles in mainly our lower body no longer have to support so much weight. As a result, these muscles tend to waste away over time. This is called muscular atrophy. Bones of the lower body also lose density, both because the weight is gone and because they're no longer impacting on the ground the way they do on Earth when walking or running. A certain amount of impact is needed to keep bone mass. This is also why we should do sports. It's a simple fact for muscles and bones. Use it or lose it. The important thing to remember is that muscle strength is dynamic. While it can waste away, it can also be built up. In space, one of the biggest challenges facing astronauts is to keep their bodies in shape and their muscles built up. These exercises aim to get the muscles and bones working the way they do on Earth. Think about how much exercise we need to do on Earth to keep fit. Now imagine having no weight to fight against. How much exercise would you need to do now? Our friends all over Europe have come up with ideas of what they think it might be like to work in space. None of these situations are exactly the same as being in space itself, but they give us an idea of what to expect. We've seen that gravity has many effects on the human body. On Earth, we use 3 sets of sensors to orient ourselves: our muscles and tendons, our vestibular system, and our eyes. In space, only our eyes work properly because they're not dependent on gravity. On Earth, our blood is affected by gravity and tends to fall earthwards. If we change our normal position, the blood flow will change. This does not happen in space. Our cardiovascular system is used to fluid getting pulled down into our legs by gravity and having to pump against gravity up to our head. In weightlessness, blood and fluid evens out, causing chicken legs and puffy faces. In space, our musculoskeletal system can waste away over time as it's not being challenged. But because muscle strength is dynamic, astronauts can counteract muscle atrophy by doing exercises in space. Longer spines, puffier faces, thinner legs and dizziness are only some of the changes your body will need to be prepared for if you ever get to experience space travel for yourself. But the body soon gets used to space travel, and astronauts love the excitement of their work.
I first became interested in spaceflight when I was 12 years old after reading science fiction comics. I then went to study medicine and became a doctor. I also found that very fascinating. And eventually I was able to work in spaceflight where I coordinated medical experiments. Arriving in the space station, it looks as if everything is turned upside down. You suddenly think, this is strange. Things like sleeping as well. You kind of just hang there. All the food is sticky to make sure that there aren't too many crumbs floating around. Every minute is taken up with experiments. And if you have a bit of time, it really is amazing to just look outside. The earth is really beautiful. The colours are magnificent. But then you have to come back. It is strange after landing because you can't really walk that well anymore. If you turn your head, everything spins around you. It takes a while for everything to return to normal. To become an astronaut, you have to be highly motivated and have a lot of patience and perseverance. It is very well conceivable that someone who is at school now, or someone who is watching this DVD now, will maybe someday be walking around on Mars. Someday that will happen. It's just a matter of time.
Space travel is only starting to become a reality for people all over Europe. Our team on the ISS know they have many other questions to answer and many adventures to share with you. So stay on board to find out what ESA has planned for our next mission.